Hello, boys. We're going to cover the Sorceress build tier list today. So this is all my off-meta builds that I've covered. Some of these I've covered in variations. Some of these have multiple variants. And there's also stuff here that is currently on the chopping board, or I have tested it in the past to a degree that I am comfortable with putting accurately on this tier list in comparison to everything else that I've kind of shown. So I've done a lot of Sorceress builds, and I've kind of narrowed it down to a good chunk here. So, you know, we've got a good chunk to kind of go through. There's definitely over 20 of these here, and we'll kind of start off. One of them I messed about with is a Hellslayer. Hellslayer is a unique axe. It does have very heavy requirements, but it does have a decent chance to cast a high-level fireball, and that was the only thing I was really looking at that got me bricked up. It is not that good. I do not like this build at all. It's just something I tried. I wasn't happy with it, but I thought I would throw the build out anyway. It really... like, the fireball synergy works. You proc it very inconsistently, because with using a big two-handed axe, as you could probably be aware without even testing the damn build, it is very slow. So that is not consistent. The enchant damage is decent on there. We do have access to other skills like Hydra from One Dragon. We can cast Meteor, but with those just by itself, there really is no need to have the axe on it. It's pretty terrible. Although it can clear quite well with all the stuff you have put in there, I would put it down as a C tier. It is not very cohesive, and it's pretty ugly. I don't like it, but maybe you boys might feel different about it. What is something else we can put on here? I have the Marauder Sorceress, so just a cute little name, whatever. But this is a combination of a few different builds I have below here. This is One Dream with, on Switch, we have a melee weapon set. So we have Passion with a, what do you call it? A Spirit Shield. And then on Switch, we have a Wisp. We have Mist, Rune Word, and then we have two Mist, oh my god. Mist, Weapon, and then Wisp Projectors. So we're proccing lightning, we're piercing when we're shooting arrows, and then we can switch back and then dive in there with Zeal. So it's a slightly cheaper version. It's like a worse version of both of the other two, going full in range, but also full in melee. I would put it in a B tier. It's fun because you can access all the playstyles in one character, and that was really the whole idea of doing it. But in that case, when dealing with off-meta, you know, you're always going to end up with a better and stronger build if you put all your eggs in one basket, and with these two builds so far, I did not have that. And that's fine. You know, some builds I don't have that intention going in, some are clearly more meme builds than others, and it's whatever. Speaking of a meme build, I would say this is closer to a meme build. It is a Ice Bear Sorceress. So this is with the Ice Rune Word. We've got Holy Freeze. We run around, we slap boys in bear form. It's severely limited in skills, as you guys know. But yeah, it's not that strong. We're maximizing the synergy of Frost Nova, which can proc from there. But Frost Nova does actually require a decent amount of skill and pawn investment to maximize, and we can't proc it that consistently because we're just slapping at very slow speeds. We can't even get to over 3 APS, which is shocking. So I would put that in D tier. Like, even Hellslayer is terrible. Ice Spear is more cohesive as a more themed build. But yeah, it still clears much better than the Ice Spear Sword, unfortunately. I've got a number of things here which I have not really shown, but I've tested. One of those is a weird build called a Pride Firewall. Let's just put that there. Well, let's just call it that. I'm not putting it in A. But Pride Firewall, I wanted to make a... Let's call it a... It is... I forgot the word, boys. I'm losing it. But anyways, we're using the Pride Rune Word. We're just trying to survive. You know, we're trying to make a kind of immune sorceress with high energy shield and all of that, and we just run around and we proc Firewall with max synergy from Pride. It can work. It's very, very inconsistent getting those firewalls to proc. They just fly all over the screen. It's kind of bad. It's kind of bad, to be honest. I'd say it's worse than B. I'd put it in C tier, if not D tier. It's still better than Ice Spear Sork, unfortunately, but it is what it is. When the firewall does proc, it is very strong, but it's super inconsistent. You could do enchant and make it more of a melee attacker as well, so then you're getting hits while you're doing damage. But meh, that's whatever. Let's move on to something else. We've got down here, this doesn't have a thumbnail because it's an old showcase video. So this is technically one thumbnail, which is on there, that I took from the video. But this is, it's basically a Enchantress with a Demon Machine, but I've tacked on a Dream Helm just to give it that elemental coverage. Very simple, very boring, but it does work. I thought it was relevant to put in here, separate of the other Enchantress build, which we'll get to down there, but it's good. It's good out of its simplicity. It's good out of its ability to, clear immune areas and also use all this pre-infinity. Like if you just get one high rune, make a dream, and then you've got access to mess about. And I made this before Sunders came about, and it is something on my list to rebuild now, and you could probably get away with more of it without even using Infinity, and I think Sunders has really opened up that area of opportunity again, in some places. So yeah, it's not exactly like, classic LOD, double elemental like Frozen Orb Fireball. I think that stuff is well and truly dead since Sunders, but I think this is in essence like a closer substitute. I would put this in B. I would say it's a little bit better than the Marauder in terms of consistency, but that's up to you. Another one we do have down here is Immortal Queen. This is just with the Immortal King set chucked on a Sorceress build. So with this, I do have one dream on there, just to amp up the lightning damage, but also, as a whole, the Immortal King set is reasonably decent. With the set bonuses that the weapon, that the maul gives you, you get a whole bunch of lightning, fire, I think there's poison on there too, cold damage. They're all amped by the masteries and plus skill damage percent. So by maxing fire mastery, getting enchant, that applies good fire damage and amps up the maul on the fire damage it has already. But same with the lightning mastery. So if we just chuck on one simple dream towards this build, it functions pretty well. I would definitely put this in A tier. It's pretty good. You can make this more of a defensive base and invest more heavily into things like chilling armor, due to the fact that you need higher strength investment to wield some of the Immortal King set, but also that defense is going to be increased further when using chilling armor and that. So yeah, there's opportunity to mess around with this, but generally it's kind of fun to use, and it's a weird little setup with one dream, Hydra Throw Sorceress. This thing is with 2 Peace Dragons and 1 War Strikes. So we're going to be throwing knives, we're going to be proccing Hydras, and we're benefiting from the Holy Fire damage from the Dragon and also the Shield. It is a pretty good build. Amping up most of the synergies of Hydras, it does take a few ticks to kind of proc those Hydras enough around that group to really start adding up all the Hydra damage. But I'm impressed by it. I feel like I would put it at high A tier, if not a low S tier. I'll keep it an A for now, but I might end up bumping that up a little bit more. Something else we have down here is some of the doubles. So this is not me, double Billy, but it's the double Charge Bolt, double Frost Nova, and double Nova builds. So you boys might recognize double Nova, and that is something that Macro Boy has done himself. So shout out to him, I guess, even though he's moved on, God bless his soul, to D4. Who knows what he'll do next. But anyways, what this is predominantly either a Nova, a Frost Nova build, or a Charge Bolt build, but they are built around stacking all of your CTC on struck gear. So getting a helmet with 14% chance to cast level 5 Charge Bolt when struck, or Nova when struck, or Frost Nova when struck. So it incentivizes more of a offensive playstyle type than you would typically may do if you were making a standard build of these three. It is kind of cool and unique in terms of the gear that you would need to farm for each of them, but inherently you can kind of tier list them the same as if they didn't have that double and CTC on struck gear. So Nova by itself is guaranteed S tier. With the double Nova, it's an extra additive on there. It makes a more offensive playstyle. Same with Charge Bolt. Frost Nova is very good, but I would be more inclined to put it in A tier, just for the fact of Frost Nova, you're chilling enemies, that means you're slowing their attack damage output, so they're going to proc your CTC on struck effects at a lower rate, so it's not as effective. Some areas it does actually work quite well. I do want to dive into it a little bit more, but from what I've done so far in testing, that's where I would put those three. So Lightning is typically higher, so double Nova, double Charge Bolt, oh, excuse me, I like crossing my legs, and then double Frost Nova a little bit lower. I do like Hydra Throw though. I might put that slightly higher. Yeah, I'm going to put the Hydra Throw higher. Nice. Let's move on. A nice cute bow build was a Frost Maiden Sorceress. Do you boys remember maybe when I did that Bow Assault week, and then I made bow variants for the entire week? I enjoyed that. A number of those I've had to remaster over the years, and I did remaster the Frost Maiden, which is an self-wielding ice bow. So I'm using the old thumbnail here, but it's both of them combined. When I first covered it, I kind of had, well, let's put it this way. When you're using an ice bow for cold damage and the Frost Nova procs on striking for a sorceress, it is not enough to hold its own. You have to find something else to give it a bit of backing power to make it consistent. When I first tested this during that old Bow Assault week, I opted for more of an enchant base just to help with my single target and more of attack rating. That worked reasonably well, but it was kind of underwhelming. When I kind of remastered it the next time, recently I went towards more of full cold damage base, and I opted for using Frozen Orb in between my shots. Frozen Orb has a slight delay, so I can shoot in between to complement that. So you could argue that it's not fully a thematically bow build, but it is a lot better than the first variation, and I think it fits quite well because we're benefiting the plus cold skill percent and the minus res that's on the ice bow itself, and also having that holy freeze allows us a little bit more comfort when being in that mid-range, so we can slow and chill enemies before we actually hit them. I would put this close to A tier because the Frozen Orbs are pretty damn decent, I would say. It's pretty niche, it's pretty expensive to get a few pieces of gear that you would need, obviously the ice bow itself, but it can function kind of well, but the attack speed is a little bit limited depending if you want an Infinity Mercenary or a Faith Mercenary, so that's up to you. Let's move on though. One here which has been a bit of a meme in the community for a while is a Vengeance Sorceress. I hate this build deep in my heart. I hate this. I hate Vengeance on a Sorceress. It's fun to theory craft, but let's break it down and tear it to pieces right now on why you've never seen me make a build on this. So Vengeance is a weird skill where your physical damage is converted to 3 elemental type output. Cool. The only way to really amp that up effectively is if we go towards a heavy physical damage base. So upon testing this further and further, we ended up getting more damage when we were going towards a two-handed, so something like a silver-edged axe Kingslayer base, which is really weird, but not too bad. The frames, I guess, are okay with using an axe. Every single time I try and make this work, it is terrible. It is a worse version of Passion and Single Target. You're much better off just getting rid of Kingslayer and using Single Target, because if you bolster this with one Dream with a decent amount of chunk of skills into Enchant, very similar to like the Immortal King set I have here, it is horrible. There is no point in using it. I've tried bolstering Vengeance any way I can to make it more of a meaningful build, but it's just not worth it. I I guess you could put it in C tier for the sake of the single target damage, but that is it. I would not put it higher. Moving on. We've got these two thumbnails I made here just to represent the two Zeal equivalent Sorceress builds. So the first one is Dual Dreams. To no surprise, that is going into S tier. Anything with Dual Dreams is crazy. The pulse damage you get from that is crazy. And also, static field, you can just kind of nuke anything before you get into that passion slapping range. But even when you do, you deal so much damage very quickly if you've built it right. The Passion Sorceress, the Zeal Sorceress with Dual Dreams, is uncommon, and I feel like it's very set in stone and off meta. It's very fun and gimmicky when people that play in lower player counts. It's kind of fun. It's a really easy game, right? If you're farming this above P6 to P8, if you're doing Throne, if you're doing Chaos Sanctuary, if you're doing, difficult areas, you need to be more mindful on how you build this. And I feel like that's why it is more uncommon. You need to make sure you have proper energy shield, attack speed, attack rating, enough plus all skills specifically to bolster, up to 5 hits per second with Zeal. There's a lot of fun factors to consider, which is one reason why I started my channel around theory crafting that. It's a very interesting thing to get into because it creates a multi-layered approach to a sorceress build that you would not typically be forced into thinking about otherwise. When you're making like a Blizz Sorceress or a typical spell casting Sorceress, you do not consider all of the melee aspects together as skills and survivability all into one. And there's a lot of fun with that as a theory crafting build. So if you want to try and push that to P8, if you really want a deep dive into theory crafting challenge, that's something I would recommend. In the same vein is the Fire Zeal Sorceress. This has been kind of bolstered since after the Sunder Charms. It's looking pretty nice. I would still put this as I'd still put it as maybe S tier, probably A tier. It's very close to the Hydra throw. With the Hydra build, I would say it's a little bit better because you can proc more Hydras quicker, and that seems to be giving me a little bit more clear speed than the flat Zeal. But, they're both okay. With the Zeal, you're diving head first in there. With the War Strikes and Hydra Throw Sorceress, you're not really as much. It's more of that close to mid-range quarters, so you can throw Pierce and get the Hydras and then zip on in and still slap with single targets. So I'd say they're very close in clear speed. It's just personal preference, I would suppose. Lightning Bow Sorceress. So this is similar to the Marauder Sorceress, except we're going all in on the Mist Bow for 100% Pierce and dual Wisp Projectors for a big chance to cast Lightning. Now, the unfortunate thing with this is that with chance to cast on Striking, the spells are cast on the mob where they are procced. So, in instance with the Frost Maiden, it's beneficial that the Frost Nova procs where we hit it, because we could pierce a mob, proc in the middle of cows, for example, and then that radius of Frost Nova would hit everything in that radius. Except, the lightning skill does not benefit from how that cast functions. So if we shoot through a pack of mobs and then we cast lightning, it will proc up forward from that target, only hitting the single target that it procs from and those in a distinct line path behind it. So it does have very high damage potential, but it is very infrequent and hard to set up. You need to be very particular in teleporting around with this and shooting it, but once you do actually proc a line of mobs in a dense area and you end up getting several lightnings, you just destroy it. They just disappear. They're vaporized. It's pretty sweet. But I cannot put that higher than B tier because of its inconsistency. I would kind of put that a little bit higher than Immortal Queen because of its, the range and the ability to farm different areas. but it's inconsistent, and I wouldn't want to put it higher for that reason. It is very fun, and it's a unique playstyle and something I have not seen other people do, so I would encourage that if you boys want to try something weird and wacky. Throw Sorceress, the Dual Dream Throw Sorceress, one of my most popular Sorceress off-meta builds, and one of the best. Now, I would actually rate this higher than a standard Dual Dream Zeal Enchantress, you know? I feel like the Dual Dream Throw Sorceress, it benefits from everything that a standard Dual Dream Zealer Sorceress does. Where it does increase even further in terms of clear speed is the fact that we don't need to dive headfirst in there and risk, actually dying. We can stay within that close quarter range, the same as Hydra Throw Sorceress, and deal off single target damage and finish off elite packs. Throwing the knives is not for clearing high density. It is not. You do your static field, which is fully synergized. You've got max static field, the entire screen, because that's a synergy of Nova on striking, which is on the War Strikes itself. So we throw for single target to finish elite packs and bosses. We can also use single target if we need. We have static field for AoE to whittle everything down, and it is an amazing build. It's one of my most proud off-meta builds I've made. I love this thing to death. It is awesome. There's a couple of variations of this which I've done. One is a max block, which is similar to the max block Zeal, Dual Dream. I would definitely recommend this one. It's very good, boys. Moving on. Another weird one which I have had shelved for a while is a Rift Sorceress. So on a Caduceus base, you can make a Rift which does proc Frozen Orbs. Frozen Orbs is inherently a Sorceress skill, so we can max that synergy and deal some good Frozen Orb damage. It's very inconsistent. The Caduceus base, whether we're in Werebear form or not, that's why I have it in brackets here. I've tested both. It's not good enough. It is very similar to the first Frost Maiden variant that I tested. I was just bolstering both of these with an enchant base. It's really let down by the fact that we're limited in attacks per second. So in Werebear form, and also when just hitting with Rift itself, we can't hit enough and proc consistently to make those Frozen Orbs viable. We're much better off just doing something else entirely and just casting Frozen Orbs on the side, very similar to what the second rendition of Frost Maiden ended up being once I reworked it. So with this, I definitely keep that around here. I would say it is better than a few of these. A little bit worse. I guess it's high C tier. You could say it's high C tier. The Frozen Orbs, although inconsistent, they're still very strong. The single target is very good. I would say it's more of an elite sniper, but Hellslayer has better AoE. It's whatever. Let's move on. Endgame Enchantress. Now, since the bug fix, Demon Machine, Kuko Shikaku Bow, just your Enchantress in general, I feel like got buffed out of off-meta into meta. I really feel like it did. I covered this thing quite a lot. I did a whole season playthrough of this before the bug patch, and then when they fixed it, it blew my mind how strong it was. I was doing the calculations of stat work when they announced the patch notes before it came out, before they did the fix, and I was like, are they sure? Did they mess up? Did they intend for this to be this strong? And yeah, it met all my expectations and more in terms of damage output. So the in-game Enchantress, the Demon Machine Enchantress, is crazy. It is one of the... I would say it has surpassed off-meta. It is one of the lowest ceiling sorceress farming builds that you can get, where you don't need infinity, you need bare minimum plus skills, and you can clear hell cows in some areas like hell stony tombs. It is amazing for a ladder playthrough. I've seen other content creators do it, and I'm so glad that it got the bug fix, because it was a beautiful build that could function before the fix, and it works even better afterwards. But if you want to really push this to the limit and fill it up with facets and really deck out the character, it is obscene how strong this can get. And I would put this right below the Dual Dream Throw Sorceress. It is crazy. If you really want to like switch out and pre-buff all of your gear, man, like I want to move on to another build. I feel like I could talk about it for a bit, but it's crazy. It's unnecessary. You don't need to push it to the heights that it is able to do. It is only relevant to pump out all the facets and everything if you're doing high resistant fire immune areas such as Chaos Sanctuary and Throne Room, full clears, P8 games, TZs. Then that's what you'd want to do, and that is amazing. But yeah, outside of that, it's all round. It's an amazing build, and it's a lot cheaper than going for something like a Dual Dream Throw Sorceress. Now, a few other things down the bottom before we finish off. We've got a Hands of Justice Firewall sort of melee hybrid Sorceress build. This is kind of focused around using 3 Holy Fire pieces stacking together for pulse damage. So we have Hands of Justice in our main hand, we have Dragon Armor, and then Dragon Shield. So, good Holy Fire posts. We've got good single target damage because we've got a little bit into enchant, and also the Holy Fire damage gives us very nice single target damage where we don't need to fully invest into enchant. But where this build really shines is in conjunction with Firewall. So with using Firewall and the pulse damage, this thing is very strong. Very, very strong, and absolutely S tier, and I would definitely consider it. I guess for Double Nova, that really should be a little bit higher, unfortunately, because it's definitely better. Maybe I'll put that there. Yeah, I'll probably put that higher, I think. But yeah, Hands of Justice. Crazy weapon. Stacking all 3 of those Holy Fire on a Sorceress. The pulse damage is awesome. The single target damage is awesome without going full enchant. And just having that Firewall to deal over tens of thousands of damage per second while you're teleporting and freezing and blinding single target with Hands of Justice, it's crazy, man. I haven't seen other people do this type of variant with the Sorceress, but it's definitely worthwhile. And Firewall by itself is inherently very strong, so yeah, I'd recommend trying that for sure. We've got Spear Sorceress down here with Chain Lightning procs. So we're utilizing a self-willed Infinity for 50% chance on kill to cast, I think it's level 20, Chain Lightning, if I remember that right, but also other Chain Lightning gear. So on bits of jewelry, you can get up to, I think, 8% chance, maybe, to cast Chain Lightning. You can also get that on, when struck, on like Naja's helmet, but you could also get it on the Cow King's chest as well. So it's a fun little build to try and get that Chain Lightning proc, but it is kind of inconsistent. It's okay. It's okay. I had an older variation of this, which I shelved for a while, and then I dug it back up and I ended up bringing this build up. But my older version had like Crescent Moon, Naja's on there. I had Cow Kings that had really strict only going for Chain Lightning, and it was really inconsistent. I still feel like this is not that well rounded, albeit it is kinda still okay and strong. I would put it in a low A tier because of the inherent strength of the skills and what it's built around. But as a full-fledged build, I wouldn't rate it that highly. So we'll just sit that comfortably in low A tier. Now, to finish off, we've got the Summon Sorceress down here. So, the Summon Sorceress is a very clunky build. Utilizes a non-ethereal Eternity main weapon base to cast a whole bunch of revives, and then to enchant them all. It is amazing to use offensively and defensively when teleporting with a whole bunch of summons, if you boys are familiar with the Necro playstyle or, any other type of summoning build. But it's really nice. It's complemented very well with excess points into Firewall, because Warmth shares a synergy with Enchant, similar to what I've done with Hands of Justice I did here with the Summon Sorceress. I would put this close to S tier. I would put it up to about... I'd put it in A tier. I'd put it in A tier, and I feel like I'm inclined to move these ones down, actually. Let's move that Chain Sorceress down to B tier. Yeah. The Summoned Sorceress is let down by it being very clunky. It's difficult to handle all of the revives when you have them. And there's also no indicator. There's no visual indicator unless on our character that shows us that you have enchant enabled. Like if you have a mate join your game and you're level 9 to enchant, you can see that your little weapon turns red, right? If you have venom, it turns green. But with you have revives, if you enchant them, and also any other minions, and also your mercenary, there's no way to tell. So if you're farming around and you're trying to, maximize your revive charges and trying to figure out which one, oh, did I enchant this one or this one, or it's so clunky and annoying to manage that. But if you do it right, if you set it up well, and let's say you've got everything enchant and revive, then you can farm pretty steadily and use Firewall to your advantage to complement this, and it works very well. So that is pretty much rounded up all the Sorceress builds that I have so far that I've tested, and some that may not see the light of day. But yeah, those are here. I will see you boys in the next one. Let me know your thoughts below. Is there something you disagree with here? I don't know. See you around, boys.